All right, everyone, we are live. Welcome to the first edition of Homes at Home. Today, I, Elliot Nelson with Michigan Sea Grant, are going to bring you some Great Lakes fun facts, some awesome activities, and some ways that you can steward the Great Lakes. If you have questions throughout today, you can ask your questions via the Q&A section if you're on Zoom, right down at the bottom of the screen, or if you're watching via our live stream on our Michigan Sea Grant Facebook page, feel free to just ask the questions as a comment, and we'll do Q&As at the end. But we're going to get rolling today and start off with a little quiz about the Great Lakes. So if you didn't figure it out, our name is the Homes at Homes, and HOMES is an acronym that stands for the 5 Great Lakes. Each of the Great Lakes starts with one of the letters from the word homes. And so I'm going to quiz you at home. I want you to shout out the name of the Great Lake if you know it. Right here is the first Great Lake. It starts with an H. Can you shout it out at home? I want to hear you. I think you might be there. And it's Lake Huron. This is an awesome lake with tons of shipwrecks in it. All right, the next lake starts with an O right here. This is the only one that doesn't touch Michigan, but we'll forget it. It's still a great lake. Shout it out. It's Lake Ontario. Next, we're heading over to this big old lake right here. It touches Chicago and the sandy dunes, and it's the namesake of the lake or the state that I live in. Shout out the name of this lake. Lake Michigan. All right. Finally, it takes us over to this nice shallow lake that's super productive and full of walleye, which are super yummy. Shout it out. It's Lake Erie. The very last lake is the biggest lake. This is a huge lake. All the other lakes can fit into this lake. Anyone know what it is? Shout it out. It's Superior. All right. So that is our 5 Great Lakes. Each of those start with one of the letters from the word homes, and you can remember that at home today. But today we're going to talk about bird ventures. I'm going to take you on a series of bird ventures that you can do at home and learn a little bit more about one of the most fascinating creatures that lives in the Great Lakes region. Oh, let me introduce you to Kevin here. This is Kevin, one of the most awesome birds of the Great Lakes region. This is a great blue heron. You can see he's super tall with these long, spindly, dinosaur-like legs that he uses to walk through wetlands. And whoa, watch out for that bill there. That is a big old dagger-like bill that they use to zap right into the water and catch things like frogs or fish. This is one of the most awesome Great Lakes birds that we have out there, but there are literally hundreds and hundreds of species of Great Lakes birds that you can go out and see or even see from your backyards. And the Great Lakes are super important to these birds. Let me show you something here. Have you ever heard about migration before? Migration is what a lot of bird species do to go from their winter grounds to their summer grounds where they will have their nests and lay their eggs and raise their babies. And there are major migration routes across the Great Lakes and across North America. But 2 of those routes, the Mississippi Flyway and the Atlantic Flyway, birds from both of those go across the Great Lakes region. Now, why would all those birds make a detour and head to the Great Lakes? Well, part of that reason is because there are so many resources there. Birds like these tiny little American goldfinches. This is a super tiny little bird, super bright and colorful, weighs less than an ounce. It's so small, but that bird will actually fly across the Great Lakes when it's in its migration. Now, when it lands on the shoreline, and many other birds like these gorgeous little warblers here, they go on these long journeys and they get to the Great Lakes and they have to fly across these long Great Lakes. They're so tiny, but when they land on that shoreline in the spring, guess what's waiting for them? A whole bunch of bugs called midges that crawl out of the water and live along the shoreline there. So food comes out of the Great Lakes for our birds. Also, all this water means a lot of wetlands for folks like Kevin here, where they can actually live and raise their young. So the wetlands of the Great Lakes are super important. The food that comes out of the Great Lakes, like bugs and fish, is super important. And so there's a lot of great reasons that birds want to be in the Great Lakes region. And today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how you can care for those birds and how you can go look out your own backyard and see some of those bird species. So let's dive into it today. I'm going to share with you 5 things that you can do to help protect birds. And so I'm going to share my screen here again. The first thing you can help do to protect birds is make your windows safer. So wait, why is a window not safe for a bird? Any ideas at home? Can you think about If a bird can't see the window, if it's really clean, and I mean, my windows at home aren't really clean, but the windows theoretically can be really clean, and birds can then accidentally run into them. And that actually is really dangerous for birds. So if you're at home and you have windows, put up some window clings, screens, or even pieces of string 4 inches apart, and that can help make your windows safer. Number 2, keep your cats indoors. What does a cat like to do when it's outside? It likes to pounce. And actually, cats unfortunately kill over 2 billion birds a year outdoors. So please keep your cats indoors. It's actually safer and healthier for your cats too, as it keeps them safe from predators. And you can always provide them leashes or patios, little patios for cats if you want them to get that outdoor experience. Number 3, reduce your lawn. Plant native things like dogwoods and nannyberries and mountain ash. Nannyberry, isn't that a great plant name? Those are awesome native plants that can provide little fruits for your birds. But also any native plant is great because it attracts native insects and other bugs that the birds are going to then eat. So reduce your lawn, plant native. The last 2 things, I'm actually going to take you through doing those things today, and that's going to be your challenge to do at home after this video wraps up in about 15 minutes or so. So number 4 is feed the birds, and number 5 is report your sightings. So let's get into feeding the birds, shall we? All right. So one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to make a bird feeder. I'm going to show you how to feed birds at home, and you can put this bird feeder in your own backyard or anywhere around your house, your apartment, or wherever you may live. And you'll be surprised to see that birds, whether you're in the city or the suburb or the farm, they're going to come out and they're going to use your feeder. So the first thing we need is a platform. Any kind of platform will do. I think cardboard works, so hopefully you have some cardboard around the house. And we're gonna cut out a little platform shape. And you can be really creative with this. Get crazy with it, make a nice big platform for bigger birds. I'm gonna do a nice little platform for something like a chickadee here today. And voila, okay, don't call me an artist, but I do have a platform started here. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to glue some popsicle sticks on there to provide a little perch for the birds. Now, if you don't have popsicle sticks at home, you can just go outside and collect a few twigs around the house. Twigs or sticks, actually, that's even more sustainable than using popsicle sticks. So just go outside, find some twigs or sticks. Now I'm going to take my glue stick here, and I'm just going to add a little glue and my popsicle sticks. Voila! Ta-da! Perches for my birds. Again, mine's not beautiful, but I bet you can make an awesome and creative one. Next, I'm going to put some wire through here to be able to hang up my bird feeder when this is all done. Now, you can use string at home or cotton. You can really use any materials to make this platform and perch and to hang it. I would just say make sure you don't use plastics. Plastics, if you put those on your bird feeders, maybe that could fall down and that could get into your ground, and then you just contributed to plastic pollution. So use things that are biodegradable, like paper products and wood. And now, voila, I have my bird feeder. Now, what do I gotta feed the birds with? They're not gonna eat the cardboard, that'd be crazy. My dog might eat the cardboard, but birds don't want to eat cardboard. So I'm gonna take a little peanut butter just to help my seeds that I'm gonna put on here stick. And I'm gonna spread that peanut butter across the platform here. And then I'm going to take my bird food. Now, you have a variety of options out there. If you have peanuts, crushed up peanuts make for a great bird food. Black oil sunflower seeds is one of the best things that you can use for bird seed. I would avoid using those wild bird seed mixes. They're full of fillers that normally most birds won't eat. So get something like sunflower seeds, peanuts, safflower seeds. Go to your local bird shop like Wild Birds Unlimited, and they'll give you tips on what you can use. Now, I'm going to add some peanuts to my bird feeder here. And holy moly, I just made a bird feeder. This is awesome. So this is our first challenge for our Homes at Home series. And this is the first thing that we want you to do is to build a bird feeder out of materials around your house and put it in your backyard. Now, what are you going to see at that bird feeder? What might come up? Well, I've got a few birds here. These are skins from Lake Superior State University that are used for teaching. And so I'm going to show you a few of the different birds that you might have show up. And really, what you should look for if you want to maybe identify the birds. Because seeing the birds is cool, but my favorite part is learning what species they are. So let's start with this guy here. This is a beautiful northern cardinal. Now, if you want to identify this, probably what's some things you notice about this bird at home? Shout out, tell the person next to you at home, what are some things that you notice about this bird? It's red. That's one of the things I noticed right off the bat. So color is really important. Here's a few other things. This part of the bird is called the beak. That's a really important part for looking at if you want to identify the bird. Now look at this beak. It's really thick and short. It's kind of chunky. That's a chunky bill right there. I'd call that a chunky bill. This bill is used for crushing seeds. This is a seed crusher bird right here. And this is called a northern cardinal. So we look at the bill, we look at the color, look at the tail too. This tail is as long as the body of the bird. Can you imagine having a tail as long as your body? That's what this bird has. And so that tail length is really helpful to know. All right, so this northern cardinal is a male, but don't be confused. If you see another one that looks very similar, this is a female. The females are lighter brown in color. So again, these are study skins from Lake Superior State University that are used for teaching. And if you don't have those at home, you can always go out and get a bird book to look up some of those things. Let me show you a few other cool looking birds. Another really common one here is the chickadee. This is one of the most iconic birds in all of Michigan. Chickadee-dee-dee-dee is the sound you might hear it, or there's their call. And look at this bird. It's much smaller, right? And look at the bill on that. It's a very tiny, thin bill. Now, these birds are great at getting insects and bugs. They can go out and forage for a whole variety of different things. And this super tiny bird is really good at surviving all year round. This is one of the few birds that doesn't leave us in the winter. So you can see this bird all parts of the year. And again, we look for the different features like pretty long tail, tiny little bill, black cap, white cheek to help us identify it. Some other birds can be identified both by their features and the way they act. This is a hairy woodpecker. Now, this guy has a huge bill at the front, right? Kind of like the dagger back there on Kevin. And what do you think this one's used for? That's right, going right into the wood to get bugs out of there. Now, you might not see these at your feeder that much, but if you put up some suet or you look along a tree, you'll actually see these crawling along the tree as opposed to perching on a branch. So a bird like this Rufus-sided towhee might actually land and perch on a branch, whereas this one is going to crawl along the bark. A couple others really quick. This is a super common bird in cities across North America. Again, he's got that chunky bill. That's more for seed cracking. And this is a house sparrow. These are urban birds. You actually don't find these out in the woods. You find these around people. So these are a great bird to see if you live in a really urban area. And one last one before I wrap that part up. These two little guys are some of my favorite. These are called nuthatches, and these are year-round birds here in Michigan. But the crazy thing about these, now again, you can look at the bill. It's pretty narrow and thin, so it's good at picking up insects under bark, but it's also good at eating seeds. But the shape of this bird is what makes it easier to identify. It's almost like a torpedo with that straight head, and they actually go vertical down trees like this. They go head first down the trees along the bark as opposed to going on branches. So that's another way that you can learn, or another species of bird that you can learn about. All right, so I've just shown you some awesome birds that might show up at your home feeder that you're gonna go out and make today. But if you really want to get good at identifying the birds, I'm going to share one more resource with you, and this resource is really good to help you identify birds. Well, before that, a few things you can also use. You can use things like binoculars to help you see them closer. Whoa, these binoculars make things 10 times bigger. That was really big. You can also go out and get a bird book. This is my bird book I've had since I was 6 years old. My grandparents got it for me, and it's inspired the love of birding through me for the rest of my life. But if you don't have access to a bird book, and even if you don't have access to binoculars, you can still use the Merlin Bird ID app to help you figure out what species are at home. So this is a great resource that's online. Hopefully you can see that now, provided by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And you can download this on your smartphone or your Google phone, Apple or Android. And what it'll do, it's a whole bird book in your phone, which is pretty great. But even cooler than that, it has these tools, and it will ask you questions like, how big was the bird? What was its bill shaped like? How long was its tail? What color was it? Where did you see it? How was it acting? Does it like the weather today? Okay, maybe not that question. But it will ask you a bunch of questions, and then it will give you a list of possible birds you see. The other option you can do with it, if you have a camera at home and you want to take a picture of that bird, whoa, there's a bird up there. I'm going to take a picture. And you got the picture. Now you can upload that picture to the Merlin Bird ID app, and it'll actually help identify that for you. So that's a great resource. And then I said there was one more thing that you could do to help protect birds and help share the love of birds around your house, and that's use eBird. Now, eBird is a way to report what you saw to the scientific world and to everyone, really. I use eBird all the time. It helps me keep track of the birds I've seen. But there are over 600 million eBird reports now out there where regular birders who are just crazy, they're out there all the time birding, they are reporting what they're seeing to this database. And now scientists can use this database to help understand what's going on with birds. We can figure out their migration routes. We can figure out where they're increasing or decreasing in population. It's a super powerful tool. And if you want to go do that extra credit to help out the birds, use the eBird app. So hopefully that's inspired you today to learn a little bit more about birds. Like I said, birds are all over the place and you can see them anywhere. They're super important to the Great Lakes. You can help them through those 5 easy steps, and you can go out right now and create one of these awesome bird feeders. So just to wrap up, to let you know, we are doing 5 days of this Homes at Homes challenge, and during those 5 days, each day we're going to challenge you to do something. Today, the first challenge is to protect birds and to go feed the birds. Make a bird feeder. That's the first challenge. We'd love to see pictures of your bird feeders. You can comment on our Facebook post and show us what you create. Hopefully it's a little prettier than mine. Mine is kind of a disaster, but yours could be really awesome and we want to see that. Or even if they're simple, we want to see that, share that on our post. But if you do all 5 days challenge, we'll have a Google form at the end for you to fill out and get a certificate to show that you are a certified junior Great Lakes scientist. So make sure you tune in all 5 days to do 5 days of challenge. And again, the first day's challenge is to make a bird feeder and go out and feed the birds. All right, so we've had some questions filling in throughout this, and we're gonna take a little time for me to answer some of your Great Lakes birds questions now.
Hi everybody, this is Geneva, and I'm tuning in from Ann Arbor. I am one of Elliot's coworkers at Michigan Sea Grant, and I've been collecting your questions through the broadcast. Let's start out with this one. Elliot, what are some of the most common birds in Michigan?
That's a great question. And so we have a lot of potential birds. Over 200 different species of birds actually nest in Michigan, and over 400 species have been seen in Michigan. So there's a lot of birds out there. But if you're looking at your own backyard, some of the most common birds are some of the ones I showed you around here. The black-capped chickadee, like I said before, is one that's found in every single part of the state, and even in urban areas. And so this is a really common bird. The white-breasted nuthatch is another very common bird that you would see at bird feeders. And of course, the house sparrow in many urban areas. But you're also very likely to see some bigger kind of flashy birds like American robin. Those are the birds with the kind of burnt orange breasts. They're a rather large bird. They're pretty obvious as they hop around on lawns picking up worms. Another bird that you can see in most parts of the year is the blue jay. This is another large, conspicuous bird that really likes to make a lot of noise and really make messier bird feeders, but they are beautiful and cool to watch. I don't have a skin of one, but the American crow is probably one of our other most common bird species. So crow, robin, blue jay, and then those feeder birds would be some of your real common ones you can expect to see.
Awesome, thank you, Elliot. We had someone wondering if they make a nest for the birds, do you think the birds will actually set up shop there?
Well, that depends on how you make it. So most birds are going to make their own nests. In fact, all birds will make their own nests. You can't really make the nest itself for the bird. But there are some birds that really like to nest inside what we call cavities, and that's just a fancy word for a hole in a tree. All right, so a lot of birds like to nest inside holes in trees that are dug out first normally by woodpeckers, but then other birds will take advantage of it. And you can actually build a cavity for a bird to nest in called a bird home, or a bluebird nest box, a nesting box. I don't know what they're called. Anyway, you've seen lots of bluebird homes probably before, and those are used by bluebirds, but also chickadees and house sparrows will use those. There's a bird actually that needs a cavity that really relies completely on humans to make it. It's called the purple martin. And you can head over to the Michigan Audubon website to learn more about purple martins. Those are a bird that actually require humans to make them homes. They've evolved along with humans, and they actually really need those purple martin homes that humans make for them. So that's another one. Wood ducks and saw-whet owls and screech owls are other birds you can make cavities for. So check out cavity nesting birds and make some of those at home.
Awesome. We are at 10:50, so we've got just a little bit more time. Yes?
Yeah, keep going.
Yep, okay, great, awesome.
Questions.
So we've got several people wondering, what is the biggest bird in Michigan?
Oh, you're gonna have me racking my brain on that. So there's a few different ways to classify a biggest bird, right? What do you mean by biggest? The bird that weighs the most, the bird that's the tallest, the bird that has the longest wingspan. And I'm not sure I know exactly what we call the biggest bird in Michigan, but one of the biggest birds in Michigan is called the trumpeter swan. I believe that might be the bird with the longest wingspan, though I'm not positive. This is a native swan species. Unlike the mute swan, it has the orange bills. This swan has an all-black bill and a massive wingspan. Some of our other really big birds, like Kevin, the cranes and the herons, the great blue heron and sandhill cranes are probably some of our tallest birds in Michigan. They have those really long legs. And some of our heaviest birds are birds like the bald eagle, which used to be really rare, but actually if you're around the water anywhere in the state now, they're very likely to see something like a bald eagle. So sorry, I don't have the exact answer for you, but they're some of our biggest birds: bald eagle, great blue heron, sandhill crane, and trumpeter swan.
Awesome. I would love to see some of those out in the wild, and if any of you do, you can always take a picture and let us know. We've got somebody wondering about a bird that I recognize the name of called a Kirtland warbler. What's so cool about the Kirtland warbler?
Yes, the Kirtland's warbler is one of the most iconic and special birds in all of Michigan. This is a picture of the Kirtland's warbler right here. This is a tiny little bird that spends its winters down in the Bahamas and flies 1,000+ miles every year to come up to Michigan, the only place that it really likes to make a nest. What's so unique about this bird is that it's super picky about where it makes its nest. It doesn't just use any tree. It only uses one type of tree called jack pines to build its nest in, right near the ground. And not only that, but it only uses jack pines that are like 5 to 10 years old. If it's too big or too tiny, it's like, no, I just need a thick plot of jack pines, which really only normally comes up after fire. And so that bird is found only in the center part of Michigan. There's a few tiny populations now in Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula, and Ontario, but the majority of the birds live there. And at one point there were under 300 breeding males, so there were only a few hundred of these birds left. And part of that was because we started controlling forest fires, and there were no more big plots of young jack pines. So thankfully, over the last few decades, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the Michigan DNR and many other natural resource managers and groups have actually worked really hard to bring the Kirtland's warbler back, and it's no longer considered an endangered species. So it's one of the greatest success stories in Michigan when it comes to birds, and it's one of the most unique species that pretty much you can only find in Michigan.
That's super cool. So I know in most parts of Michigan, pretty much all parts of Michigan, if you go outside and look hard enough, you will find a bird, at least one, somewhere. But are there certain times that are best to go birding, or certain times of day, times of the year?
That's a great question. So in terms of times of day, most birds are active in the morning and evenings. They take a siesta in the afternoon. They like to nap. Maybe you like to nap too. I know I like to nap. I'm going to need a nap after this. But most birds are active in the morning and in the evening. Now, during times of the year, we really want to think about when are the birds moving through the most. And I showed you that migration map. and that is during spring and fall. So that's when birds that live way down in Florida and South America are heading north, and many of them just pass through Michigan up to Canada in the spring and fall. And that's when you can literally see hundreds of species at one location, especially along shorelines in Michigan. So spring and fall is a great time to get out and see migrant birds, but we have birds here year round. So if you have a feeder in your backyard, you can expect birds to probably be there as long as you keep it up and full year round.
All right, we've had a couple of people wondering, now that we know what the biggest birds are, what are some of the smallest birds in Michigan?
So the smallest bird in Michigan would probably be the ruby-throated hummingbird. Hummingbirds are one of the most fantastic group of bird species in the world. They're super tiny and they beat their wings so fast that you can't even see them. It's just a blur. It looks like they're hovering in space. They use their wings to actually move up and down and around. They don't fly like a normal bird in a straight path. They can actually hover around like a helicopter. And they are so tiny that when they build a nest, their eggs are smaller than the size of a peanut. So I have a peanut here, and I'll show you. Their eggs are about that size, as small as a peanut. That's how small the eggs are. And those birds never get much bigger than like a large bug. They really do look like a large bug sometimes. So ruby-throated hummingbird is certainly one of the smallest. I don't know if by weight or not, but they're an awesome bird. And they don't eat seed, but you can put out nectar for hummingbirds, and they should be arriving here by the end of April or starting in May, and that's when you want to put out your hummingbird feeders.
All right, so we are about 4 minutes away, so be sure to toss in any more questions. We've got a lot here. I'm not sure we'll be able to answer all of them. So maybe on that note, if people have specific questions about specific kinds of birds, what are some of the places where they can go to find that information?
One of the best resources, again, from that awesome place, the Cornell Lab of Ornithology out of Cornell University in New York, they have a website called allaboutbirds.com. allaboutbirds.com. And that website has all sorts of great resources. If you're new to bird watching, you want to learn about bird species, you want to learn about bird science, it's an awesome resource. It's made by scientists, so it's accurate, it's helpful, and it has lots of good resources on how to protect birds too, and make sure the ways that you're birding and feeding birds is going to be helpful to the birds and not harmful. So allaboutbirds.com, that's the #1 resource I'd send you to. They're the same folks that make the Merlin Bird ID app and the eBird website. And then of course, getting a nice guide like the Sibley Guide or the Golden Book Guide, the National Geographic Guide. These have really helpful ways on how to identify species, as well as maps on where they are and things like that.
Great. We've got a couple of egg questions. Maybe you can answer both of these. First, how big is a heron egg, and how many of those tiny little peanut eggs can a hummingbird lay at once?
Those are both good questions. I think if I recall, a hummingbird can lay around 2 to 4 eggs. I don't know how big a heron egg is. That's a great question. I just don't have an answer. So I encourage you to maybe use the internet and go look that up. How big is a heron egg? I've seen an ostrich egg. That's going to be really big. But a heron egg, I've never seen.
We had somebody asking about mourning doves, wondering how common they are in Michigan or in other parts of the country.
Yeah, the mourning dove is another great feeder species that you're very likely to see at your bird feeders if you put them out. They're a small brown, well, about a robin-sized brown bird that normally walk around on the ground. They're pretty docile. They can be actually fairly tame, and they're pretty common. You can find them across all of Michigan during most months of the year. Many of them don't leave for the winter, and they're really our only dove species. We do have rock pigeons and very few places Eurasian collared doves, but they're a really great and beautiful species with a super awesome iridescent patch that most people don't see that shines purple and pink sometimes. So look for that.
Great. We had our lovely colleague Cindy let us know that the URL for that bird website is allaboutbirds.org. So make sure you're looking for that. Or if you Google All About Birds, you'll probably get your way there. So we have just 1 minute left, so I am going to ask the question that everybody wants to know. Elliot, what is your favorite bird?
Oh, my favorite bird. I always go crazy. I don't know what to pick. But, you know, I used to pick the most colorful and fancy birds. I really love black-throated blue warblers. I don't have a picture of one of those, but they're an awesome bird. But my favorite bird is the iconic black-capped chickadee. This bird embodies the spirit of Michigan. It's hardy. It sticks it out. It's friendly. Some of these will even eat seed out of your hand. They're curious. They always come when there's a new noise or presence in their territory, and they always check out what's going on. And so I really like the black-capped chickadee because I really think it embodies the spirit of what a Michigander is, and it sticks it out all year round.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. It is 11 o'clock, so we are going to stop here, but don't forget, tune in every other day this week. Same place, same time, same link. We've got lots of different cool topics from the Great Lakes to talk to you about. Sometimes it'll be Elliott, sometimes it'll be awesome other folks from Michigan Sea Grant. So don't forget to come back and take those challenges on. If you take on the challenges, remember at the end of the week, you can let us know about them and get a certificate. And if you or your parents are taking pictures of any of the cool things that you make, you can always put them on social media and tag Michigan Sea Grant. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter if you put the photos up on any of those spots. We would love to see you back again tomorrow, so don't forget to tune in then. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.